Hey, it's Matt. Here at Let's Talk Music, I strive to follow all rules and guidelines during my interviews set by the artists and publicists. That includes privacy, confidentiality, and so forth. During the end of this interview with Brandon Gregory of Drop Top Alibi, he disclosed info with me about some upcoming things the band's doing that he wishes not to be shared. That's why the interview ends kind of funky. I'm sure Drop Top Alibi and Cowgirl Zen Entertainment will release the info via social media when ready. So enjoy and please like and subscribe. Hey, I'm Matt. Welcome to the show. I'm with Brandon from Drop Top Alibi, uh, band based out of Ontario, Canada. How are we doing today?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Eh, you know, always a good starter for the conversation.
How's the weather today? Oh, it's shit, but how's the weather today for you? It's also shit.
Right. So let's talk about your new single real quick. I is it Dial Song?
It's Dill song.
Dill
Dill,
Song.
like Dylan, like a guy named Dylan.
Okay, gotcha. And tell me what inspired the writing of that one.
Well, I mean, it was kind of our first pandemic baby. When everything kind of went to shit in 2020, it was about 2 or 3 months before the four of us got back together in a room. Um, and once we did, that main riff that the song starts off with and that like all the choruses are, our guitar player Dylan had written and like sent to us on like a voice memo at some point while we were all stuck at home. And it was one of the riffs that we wanted to jump into right away when we got a chance to kind of get back to it. And the song just came together really quickly. We all pitched in. I wrote all the lyrics and like the vocal melody in the chorus. My drummer actually wrote the melodies for the verses. Luke, the bassist, did a lot of arrangement stuff and came up with that midsection for us. And it was a really collaborative effort and felt really good, especially while we were all kind of trying to figure out why we still do this shit when all that was happening. And yeah, that chorus just came out of me, man. I had been having a tough time. Um, sort of getting used to the new normal, and that just kicked back on the overdrive. I'm running out of time on the bright side, note for note, word for word was like the first thing I sang. And it felt
Right.
really cathartic and really good, and luckily we were recording it, and yeah, it was our first pandemic baby, and we just decided to write another 35 songs and hit the studio.
Nice. So have you released the EP yet?
We have an EP out from a few years ago, but we're working. So we got a new single coming out at the end of May, and then probably again before the summer's over. We're sitting on a lot of tunes, and we've been very active in the studio. So we're gonna figure out something that we want to do. We haven't quite figured out what yet, but there's a lot of new music coming that sounds just like Dill's song.
Right. Okay. So the video is fairly fairly simple. I mean, was that like a band concept or was that your creator's concept? I mean, it just, kind of a TV in your face. And I mean, it was I mean, pretty, it was a good video. I mean, I liked it. I'm just saying, it seemed like, you guys kind of just, there wasn't a whole lot to it. You know what I mean? I mean, you got a lot of
Yeah, really,
bands.
really.
What is it?
Was really minimalist. Yeah, it was really really easy. Didn't want to force too much, and it's an independent. We're an independent band who hasn't been able to tour for 2 years, right? So it's
Hmm.
kind of spending $5,000 on a video right now is just not going to happen.
Right.
So our creative director Anil Little, she's been great. She's been helping us a lot with media, photography, and then said, "Hey, I got videography and editing experience too." And she came up with that concept, and we all really liked it because you know, it was like I had said previously, it was our first pandemic baby, you know, and you know, it was just like, you know, movie time, right? When 2020 sort of settled in and all this stuff started happening, it just felt really surreal and really like it wasn't real, you know, at least for us. And the concept felt really simple. We don't, you know, not everybody in the band is very camera, um, like, oh, get me on there. I want to be on there, right?
Right.
So to find a way to do what you have to do and have the visuals, but not feel like you're doing anything uncomfortable or that you know, that's not authentic. And then on top of it, you know, a really tongue in cheek yet well thought out way to explain exactly what the song is about and where, you know, our emotional and mental headspaces were at when we wrote this song. It seemed like a great concept. And I was like, Neil told me to show up fucked up for that video. And I stayed up all night the night before and looked the part for the video. Like I was dead inside, basically. You could see right through me. And it was perfect because that's kind of how we felt living through that first year of COVID, right? So it felt really good. It felt really honest, and it was super easy to do. And Anil crushed it. The edits looked great. The concept was great, and yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into more visuals and stuff with her because it was cool. It was a good experience.
Now, do you feel that videos are an important part of your band, an important part of like the new release of a song? I mean, because you know you got YouTube and other streaming sources, but it's like kind of back in the day, people spent thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars making these videos to promote their song, and we don't have MTV anymore. We don't. Do you feel like that it's still a pretty important part to say, hey, here's my song and this is our creative, I'd say creative direction with our video? I mean, what is the importance of a video to you?
Um, well, to me, I mean, to me personally, I do it because it is still something that's very important to do. You know, I mean, you know, the 90s was, yeah, the MTV era. And all of a sudden you had bands like Aerosmith pumping out music videos for songs they released in the 70s. Like it was a thing, it was a craze. And, you know, nowadays with the streaming, you know, like you said, yeah, we don't have MTV and all that, but we have something that's even more accessible. You know, people who can't afford cable probably still have data or internet, right? Like, so YouTube has become this huge thing. And, you know, major label acts, they're still spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on videos. But to me, the thing about visual content that's important for, you know, bands at our level and like, you know, even just starting out or even just above is that people just don't listen with their ears anymore. They listen with their eyes. You know, everything's become so visual and so like the cell phone era and social media. You know, you need the clips, you need the visual content. You know, you take a 3.5 minute music video and you splice it into a handful of reels you can post to your Instagram. Like all of that is just so important for where it's currently sitting.
True.
But to me, it's just an important part because people want to see the band. They want to see something. They want to see what you're about. When you're trying to promote shit and you're trying to meet new people and get, you know, like what we're doing here, it's everybody wants to see something. So to me, yes, we need it. But for me personally, at this point, especially not being able to tour the last couple of years, um, I'm not interested in spending a lot of money, and it's got to feel like, you know, loose and like not lazy, but you know, I'm not down to do, you know, a 14-hour shoot with some artsy fartsy director who I fucking hate. Like I just want to kind of do it the way we did it and have a good time, come up with something cool that feels like it's us and go from there, you know?
Well, I mean, that's a great explanation. I feel like, having fun is a big part of it. I mean, like
Yeah.
I've discussed with other artists, it is a job, but having fun at your job is what makes it great.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're out on tour, when you're doing videos and whatever, and you're having a good time doing it, it makes it less of a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Big time. And like, you know, when you get to the point where you want to pursue music, then yeah, there's things about it that you have to be savvy about. But at the end of the day, when it gets hard, like it did for everybody, a couple of years ago, and then still now, you have to be able to get back to the basics of why you did it, and that was for the love of it, and because of it was fun and it was camaraderie, whatever. And even that, when, like, for us, we had been doing really well. We had a ton of things that were going well for us, and we actually thought, we all want to do this. Let's give it a real push. And there's things you have to do when you make that decision. But when it push comes to shove, it still always has to be that teenage delinquent gang that a band is, and it's got to stay fun.
Now, did you all know each other previously before you started the band, or was it just kind of the four of you came together through some kind of media or whatever?
It's a little bit of both. I met. Oh, sorry, my dog just banged into the door there.
It's
I
okay.
met Dylan, the guitar player. I met him for like an audition situation for a band I had coming out of high school. The drummer I was playing with at the time knew Dylan and said, if this guy's ever available, we should really jam with him. And we did, and he was, and him and I kind of stayed in touch. And throughout our early 20s, we were playing in bands together. We were playing in different bands. Went from writing Van Halen tunes to Alice in Chains tunes to kind of this happy ochre medium that we're into now. And along the way there, we met our drummer, tried to poach him from a band that was doing really well. And in that process, became really good friends with him. So we were tight with Jeff, and he had been playing and touring with us before he actually really joined the band. And right around the time he joined the band for real, we were introduced to our bassist, who we met, basically to like, hey, you want to join this band? And it just worked out really well in that regard. And, here we are. Kind of, I guess we all sort of came together in 2016 or 17, and it's been a pretty strong unit since then.
Well, that's good. Being from Canada, I mean, you've got some pretty big acts up there. I mean, Rush, Triumph. I mean, did any of those guys influence your music, or does that come from maybe the Seattle sound, or I mean, where does your influence come from?
I mean, growing up, especially with some of the laws we have here, like a certain amount of Canadian content has to get, aired, shown, played, et cetera, et cetera. So growing up in Canada, you're very aware of Canadian music
Mm-hmm.
as a result of that. So yeah, I mean, bands like Rush and the Guess Who, and also just the time frame. Nickelback was the biggest thing in the world. Like you hear all these bands all the time. Of the Canadian bands, I'd say the band that influenced our sound the most, yeah, Rush, or the Guess Who for sure. Some of the more 90s bands like the Tea Party or Our Lady Peace, come to mind. But when it comes to like for example, like my songwriting journey and stuff like that, yeah, it was, big Jimmy Page guy, big Joe Perry guys. I learned I could sing high, so then you start getting through all the genres of all these great powerful singers, and grunge was a sound that stuck out to me, and late 80s American alternative in general, like Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction and Fishbone, and the Chili Peppers even,
Mm-hmm.
especially for Luke. The Chili's are huge for him. That's kind of where, and then we found stoner rock and Josh Homme and all that stuff, and that is like was our commercial accessibility to alternative music, and then we just kind of went from there. Now we know all these weird bands that a lot of people don't know about that inspire us every day, kind of thing. But that's, yeah, I'd say the old guard of like your Zeppelins, your ACDCs, your Rush, and to pique the interest, and then punk and grunge and alternative music kind of took over from there for us.
So, are you pretty much like what I'm getting from that is you're kind of classifying yourself as like an alt grunge, or not alt grunge, but like an alt rock band, right?
Yeah, not today's definition of alt rock, but yeah, like where that first wave of like, fuzzed out guitars and big drums and powerful melodies kind of came from. Like that's definitely the school that we came from as well.
Okay. So now you mentioned not being able to get out and tour. Do you have any shows booked that you're getting ready to do, or?
Yeah, we got stuff booked, a lot of local stuff. And last summer, like 2021, things were cool for a bit, you know, as far as COVID went. So we've been out, we've been playing, but as far as like getting a van and staying away from home for 3 to 5 weeks, like no, none of that's happened. There's stuff starting to come together for later this year and into next year. But we'll have to see if all the logistics line up and if things stay, good to go.
Right.
But for now, we have shows coming up in Toronto, out near Ottawa, um, maybe out in Montreal. Kind of see how far we want to go, but we're really in studio mode right now. We're sitting on a ton of music, and we don't want to not do songs that we like now because we don't, we keep writing. So we're really focused on just, you know, record. And when the day comes that, for sure you can book a tour and there's no issues, we have a ton of stuff that's ready to go. And for those who have seen us before, it's something new. And for those who are just kind of getting to know us and discovering us, it's, we'd like to think we're getting better with the songs. So we just want to start pumping more and more of them out.
So you said that you guys are sitting on like 35 songs. Is that like a goal to put all those out? Maybe on like, I would say like one or two. Well, I guess can't really even say albums anymore because I mean, you can just pump out as much as you want, I guess, on Spotify or whatever. But I mean, hell, the other day it was it was like 83 degrees here, and I was sitting out on the back porch. My wife knows my love for music, so she bought me a record player, and I was out there jamming to a record. And I mean, it felt kind of good, to actually touch something and you know what I mean, get it started, and you move it to the however you want to do it. I mean, it was different, I guess. I'm kind of old school, I mean, I grew up on cassettes, CDs, records, whatever. So not that I don't enjoy streaming because it's great, not that I don't enjoy, YouTube. It's just that right there kind of like took me back to my childhood. So I mean, back then, if you was to do something that was 20 songs, you're talking about a double album. So
Yep.
But with the platforms, I mean, you can produce and put out all 35 of those songs simultaneously, can't you?
Yeah, you could. To put that many songs out all at once would be, I mean, it would likely still be a double album, and that would be a pretty hefty double album. And
Right.
that's just super time consuming and also really expensive. And the thing about LPs, as you know, is they make sense, right? They're cohesive with themselves, whether or not they're a concept album or not. The album makes sense. There's a vibe to it. The production, drum sounds, maybe they change the snare out, but you know what you're getting each song, kind of thing. We would have to consciously decide to make an LP before doing it because, our producer, Graham Shaw, he's pretty much like our fifth member now, especially since we do everything through vintage gear and live off the floor now. You really need that guy who's like a fifth member.
Right.
And he said, if you guys are going to do an LP, we're going to work on that together in like pre-production. It's a different animal than coming in and just cranking out 2-3 songs in a weekend and then coming back some other time. Like it takes a lot more. This has got to be an album. It's got to be everything that makes that old vinyl experience enjoyable. And vinyl's making a huge comeback now, so you can still sell people that LP experience with a new band.
Right.
And it's got to be properly thought out. Our buddies in a band not far from here, north of Toronto, they're called Cigar Club, and their album is we didn't even know they were making an album. Not a lot of people did, and they just did it very quietly, and it came out, and it's it's a 9-song album, and it's a concept album. It's like, wow, you guys, you did so much with this much, and you made it make sense, and it works. and what we realized was we're not going to rush to put out an LP until we have something like that that just really feels natural and works, or until there's demand for it. You know, it's a singles market, and it's a nobody has attention spans anymore era. But when it comes to rock, I mean, people still want to see LPs, whether it's fans or it's, you know, the suits. They want to see LPs.
Right.
So to answer your question, we're sitting on a ton of songs. Not all of them are going to stay. You know, even like when I say that number out loud, I know we have that many demos and we've worked on that many things, but I can already name 3 or 4 songs off the top of my head that we've all kind of gone, maybe a riff from the song gets rescued and put somewhere else someday. But for right now, the song itself's just, there's other things we enjoy more, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So what I see happening for us right now is, you know, some singles, some A-side, B-side stuff, so we can press some 7-inches, and then also you can do 2-song release at a time, like the way the old 7-inches would come out. You can release that on Spotify. We're gonna do a bunch of those, do an EP or 2, and then we just really want to see sort of where we're at. Did we keep writing? Do we still have this cachet of songs? Our fans, you know, do we have more of them? Do we have less of them? Do we matter anymore? Do we, you know what I mean? And then kind of see where we're at and just really dive into that LP experience when we've kind of picked up the pieces from what the last couple of years have been, you know? So we're gonna take our time with sort of seeing how that plays out for sure.
Okay.
But there will be songs that come out. Is it gonna be all at once? No. But is it something that like every couple of months you can expect to hear something new for the next little while? Absolutely.
I think that's where a lot of people are. I've talked to quite a few artists recently. Basically, I'm working with like 5 publicists, and they're keeping me busier than I could ever imagine. You know, I mean, I have 3 on Friday. You know, it's just, it's been great because I mean, this is something that, you know, I'd like to turn into something bigger, but you know, for right now, it's I like to talk. That's why I call it Let's Talk Music. I like to talk about music with people, especially bands.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets kind of that information that I have stored up here out, you know, and I think that, you know, just I'm trying not to overwhelm myself, but they're sending me like all these great bands every day, and I'm like, you know, most of them are, you know, unsigned, and that's what they prefer, and that's, it's been great. I mean, because you know, you listen to the radio stations, and you really don't, you don't get to hear much of the underground anymore. You know, some stations have like an hour long, you know, local music or whatever, but local music is, you know, this area, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, you know what I mean? We're not reaching up into Canada. We're not reaching out to California or whatever. And so hearing all these different types of music that is out there has been just overwhelming. I mean, I love the different genres that I'm doing. You know, most of it is rock. I did one the other day that was sort of a there was a singer songwriter duo. Actually did a live performance for me. Was great.
Nice.
But you know, I guess since you are in a different country, I can actually say you're my first international rock star.
Well, there you go, buddy. Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I'm glad to see, you know, you're doing this, and people like you are doing this, and yeah, there's something about the underground, and it's, you know, the thing about streaming is it's ugly for so many reasons, but it's also, you know, they did say social media and all this stuff was going to open up the world and it was going to connect us. And they were right about that. There's a lot of ugliness to it, but it's cool.
Mhm.
It would have been difficult to do something like this 20, 30 years ago, like what we're doing right now. But you're right. It's interesting sometimes, even like some of the border states and cities, like, you know, Niagara Falls, Canada, and Rochester, New York, it's like a 45-minute drive, but unless you spend time in either of those places, there you never, nothing's ever going to come your way. There's a couple of FM radio stations that you'll get over the border. But you're right. Unless somebody shows you or connects you or it randomly shows up on your feed or whatever, it's like, it's interesting us. It's like, wow, you're so close. You know, I could leave my house right now and drive to Columbus and I'd see you at lunchtime tomorrow. Like, it's not that far, you know, but unless somebody makes the connection, you're right. It's either so global and so massive that it's whoever's paid to be there getting shoved in your face, or it's like whoever's literally down the street, and everything in between kind of gets lost in the white wall of it all, you know?
Yeah. Well, see, and that's, I mean, you mentioned that I'm doing this and there's other people doing this. There's a lot of people doing this. I didn't really realize how many. I kind of, I didn't really do my research. I just thought, hey, you know what? I want to interview a band. So I interviewed, you know, a pretty popular band from our area, and thought, hey, this is going to be golden. And, you know, it hasn't quite reached where I want to be. You know, I mean, I've got like 37, 38 subscribers. My stats ain't the greatest yet, but that's why I'm doing all these interviews, is because, you know, the more experience you get, the more you learn to ask the right questions, you know, and the more
Mhm.
responses you get from the artists. Like, I mean, I asked one guy what got him into music, and he went back into his childhood about his grandmother and stuff. And I was like, wow, thank you for sharing that with me. You know, so
Mhm.
it's not, I don't think I try to focus so much all the time on just your music. I try to focus on, you know, you and your band a little bit too, to know like what you guys like to do. You know, I kind of, I hate asking the question of, you know, who's your influences, because it's so cliche. I mean, but you're from Canada. I mean, come on, like I said, Rush, Triumph, you know, and the bands that you mentioned, the Guess Who, and I mean, it's, you know, big bands up there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of a, I think it's a given that you got to ask it once in a while.
Sure. Well, and it's cool, like when you're dealing with somebody who's from a different place. Like, you know, there's bands up in Canada that I could tell you about that I'd be surprised if you heard of, and I'd know you'd love it. You know, like if you've never heard of April Wine, I'm sure you'd love April Wine.
I've heard of April Wine.
If you've never heard of Harlequin, you gotta listen to their song "Thinking of You." That song is a banger.
What's
Like
it called? Who's the band?
Harlequin.
Okay, I'll look them
Yeah,
up.
they're yeah, and it's one of those things where, you know, these Canadian treasures that nobody knows about, outside of Canada, really. And it's, you know, that's kind of where, like you said, it's, there's certain things, and there's artists and bands who, if you know, if you ask them certain questions, they're like, oh, I gotta answer this again, like blah blah blah. But if you're dealing with somebody who's like, I live in different places, like those questions are cool because it's like, you know, you're gonna learn about somebody that you've never heard of before. You're gonna hear a perspective that you're maybe is not the norm. You're not used to hearing, you know. And like, oh yeah, whenever I meet somebody who's from a different country than me, if I'm doing an interview or I'm just having a chat, like I go through all the cliche questions, man, because I don't know. You're from a different place. I wanna know. Like it's gonna be a different experience than mine. So sure, why not?
Well, I mean, honestly, I can tell you that, you know, just a little bit about myself and my music. I still kind of like, you know, my classics I grew up with, you know, a little bit of Duran Duran, Michael Jackson, uh, get into, you know, before my time, Led Zeppelin, you know, Jimi Hendrix. But I think like my favorite bands from just around the globe are probably Black Sabbath, Metallica, uh, Journey. I mean, just it's a variety, man. I mean, you know,
Mm,
I like music from wherever. Music is, to me, I've said it, you know, to other people, it's a universal language, and I feel like if a song touches you, who cares how popular it is or whatever? That song to you means something, and it's at that point I feel like the artist or the band or whatever has truly accomplished what they were trying to do. You know, they've touched people with their song, or they've, you know, maybe saved somebody's life that was thinking of, you know, doing something they shouldn't or whatever. You know, it's so that's, that's kind of what it is to me, man. I mean, it's just, I love to sit and jam. I love to listen to new things. Like I said, when I was sent your press release, I was like, wow, really dig it. Can you set up an interview? So, because I don't think that publicists really get offended if you say, hey, and that's not really my style or whatever. But pretty
Mhm.
much 98% of the stuff that these people have sent me has just been wow. You know what I mean? That's what I said with the underground. It's like it's great.
That's good, man. That's good. Yeah, and it's important because it's all team building at the end of the day, right? Like you're establishing a new show. Like you need some good people who are sending you things that you're gonna like, and also the other side to that is, these people being able to read your show and say, okay, well, I'm gonna send this because I think it's gonna work.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to, you want to hear something that you're going to play, and they want to send you something that you're going to play, and it's cool to kind of, yeah, these publicists are good at what they do, and it's also, if you're authentic and genuine about what you like to talk about and what you like to play, then they're going to get it right most of the time because they're going to know who you are, right? And it's cool. It's all team building at the end of the day, and community, right? So it's yeah, that's why I'm always happy to do these things. I'm happy to meet you, and it's nice to see that you I haven't talked to anybody from Columbus before, so yeah, let's get some more action on Columbus, Ohio here for sure, you know what I mean?
Awesome, man. All right, well, we'll go ahead and close this out. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Once I get this edited and whatnot, I'll get it up on YouTube and I'll send it to your publicist and she can send it over to you. If you guys want to publish it up there, that'd be great. Gets it out a little bit. So, but yeah, thank you so much for talking with
Good.
me.
No problem, Matt. Great to meet you. Are you on, usually with interviews and stuff, we haven't set up a playlist on our YouTube for like press.
Hmm.
Most of the stuff we do for press release stuff, like interviews like this and whatnot, is social media based. Do you have a
I'm sorry, that last part broke up. Do I have a what?
like Facebook or Instagram or anything for your show?
I do. It's Let's Talk Music on Facebook.
Okay,
And
cool.
I'm working on building a website. Um, Not real tech savvy, so it's taking some time. But yeah, it's once I get it to where I want it to be, man, it'll be pretty at least awesome for me. So, but yeah, just if you go
That's
on
it, man.
Facebook and you look up "Let's Talk Music," I think I'm the only one. It's a little picture of a skull. It says "Let's Talk Music," rockmusicandmore.com underneath it. So yeah, follow it, and I've already followed you guys.
Right on. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, today's been a crazy day. I gotta go through my Facebook and my email list here, and I'll see your page show up on our page for sure, and we'll link up. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this. And it was nice chatting with you, man. And